My best friend betrayed me with my fiancée and exposed my past at my own wedding. It was my best friend Laura's bachelorette party, and I was genuinely happy for her. She was marrying her high school sweetheart, my brother Anthony. I was her maid of honor, and I had no idea how badly things were about to go. During the party, Laura hired male dancers. That already made me uncomfortable, but things went way beyond that. She slept with every single one of them. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I confronted her afterward, hoping she would feel some regret, but instead, she threatened me. She told me that if I said anything to Anthony, she would tell my boyfriend Todd about my past work as an adult entertainer. I felt completely trapped. On one hand, this was my brother. I couldn't let him marry someone who would betray him like that. On the other hand, I knew how Todd would react if he found out about my past from someone else. When we got back from the trip, Anthony asked how everything had gone. I looked over at Laura. She had no guilt on her face. She smiled and told him the trip was amazing. She talked about how much fun she had, how relaxing it was, and how she really needed that break. Anthony smiled and said he was happy she had a good time. He seemed genuinely interested in hearing all the details, but I couldn't stop thinking about what had really happened. It played over and over in my mind. A few days later, Laura and I were talking about wedding plans, flowers, decorations, seating charts. But I couldn't focus. All I could think about were those nights at the resort. She asked me a question and I completely missed it. She snapped me out of it. "Emily, are you even listening?" I quickly apologized. We picked out the wedding colors and left the shop, but the guilt followed me home. I couldn't let it go. I knew I had to do something. I made a plan. The next day, I invited Laura out to brunch at a new restaurant near my house. I placed my phone face up on the table camera, angled toward her, and hit record. We chatted like normal, nothing serious at first. Just the usual girl talk. Eventually, I brought up the trip and asked if she would want to go somewhere like that again for her honeymoon. She smiled and said yes, the resort was gorgeous and the food was amazing. Then I mentioned one of the bridesmaids who had met a guy there and planned to meet up again. Laura perked up and asked for details. I said I didn't know much, just that they really hit it off and might end up as a couple. Then she laughed and said she wished she had gotten one of the dancers' numbers. I asked which one. She lowered her voice and said, "The second guy. He was so good in bed." I pretended to sip my drink and subtly pushed my phone closer. Was he the best of them, all I asked? She nodded. By a long shot. We laughed and finished our drinks. Soon the bill came and we said our goodbyes. The second I got to my car, I called Anthony. I told him I needed to talk immediately and not to tell Laura anything. He sounded confused and asked if everything was okay. I just said, "Please come to my house. I'll explain everything when you get here." When he arrived, I opened the door quickly. "Did Laura know you came here?" He said no. He told her he was visiting our parents. I led him inside, sat him on the couch, and handed him my phone. "I need you to listen to something." I played the recording. He listened without a word, his face falling more with every second. When it ended, he sat in silence. "She told me she had so much fun," he said quietly. "Said she needed that time away. She said all the guys at the resort were hitting on her, and she showed off the ring every time." He paused. "I can't believe she lied to me like that." I apologized. "I didn't want you to find out like this, but you needed to know who you're really marrying." He asked why I waited so long, and I told him about the threat, how Laura said she'd expose my past to Todd. I said I wanted to be the one to tell him on my own terms. Anthony looked at me and said, "It shouldn't matter. It's your past. If he loves you, he'll understand." I told Anthony I was sorry for what he was going through. He said he was grateful I had his back. But I asked him not to let Laura know I was the one who told him. If she found out, she could still follow through on her threat. A few days later, 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a phone call from Laura. She was hysterical. "He left me. He left me," she cried over and over. I tried to calm her down. "Laura, what's going on?" She said Anthony called off the wedding. When I asked why, she said he found something on her phone that suggested she had cheated. She claimed that's all he said. Then she asked me if there was another woman. I told her no, I had no idea what he was thinking, and I hadn't heard anything about another girl. I reminded her how much Anthony loved her. I almost felt sorry for her. But I also knew she was facing the consequences of her choices. Over the next few months, she practically moved into my house. She'd lie on my couch all day crying, barely eating, barely speaking. I tried to cheer her up with movies and her favorite candy, but everything reminded her of couples or relationships. She asked me to talk to Anthony to convince him to give her another chance. I told her gently that I didn't think that would happen. Eventually, her sadness began to lift. She cried less. She started asking about my relationship with Todd and whether I had told him about my past. I said not yet, but I would when the time was right. She warned me not to wait too long. "I don't want you to end up like me," she said. I told her I'd handle it in my own way. It was my relationship. When she finally moved back into her apartment, things seemed better. She still came over a couple of times a week, and I could tell the space helped. She smiled more. She laughed. It felt like we were turning a corner. One night over dinner, Todd said, "I'm glad to see Laura doing better." Then he asked how Anthony was. I realized I hadn't seen my brother in a while and told him I'd call him soon. Then the waiter brought out a dessert. I hadn't ordered it. I was confused until I saw it written in chocolate sauce, "Will you marry me?" I looked up, and there was Todd down on one knee. I nearly fainted. I nodded yes, and he slipped the ring on my finger. I cried and kissed him, overwhelmed with happiness. The next day, I met up with Anthony to share the news. He was thrilled. He said I was lucky to have found someone so loving. I agreed. I told him he dodged a bullet with Laura. He laughed and said, "You saved me." He called me a genius for recording that conversation. We grabbed lunch and caught up like old times. It felt good to see him doing okay. Planning my wedding with Todd was exciting. I wasn't sure at first whether I should ask Laura to help, but eventually I did. She was thrilled. She screamed yes when I asked. Together we looked at venues, sampled cake, picked out decorations. It was strange being on the other side of it, planning my own wedding. I kept daydreaming about marrying Todd, and suddenly it was getting very real. We went to lunch one Saturday at the same restaurant where I had recorded her. She said the food was just too good not to try again. When I arrived, she gave me a gift, a caricature drawing of me and Todd with exaggerated features. Mine had a huge mouth. I laughed out loud. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "The fair hasn't been here in months." She said, "I know a guy who sells them." Looks pretty accurate, right? We laughed, and she joked that I had to hang it above our bed. I said we'd see. We ordered the same food as last time, grilled steak with garlic butter and seafood paella. It was just as good as we remembered. She asked if I was nervous. I admitted I hadn't told Todd about my past yet. She said that if he really loved me, it shouldn't matter. I agreed, and we finished our meal. Then came the wedding day. I walked down the aisle to soft music. Laura was my maid of honor, just like I had been for her. Everyone was smiling. My heart was racing, but in the best way. Then the officiant asked, "If anyone objects, speak now or forever hold your peace." And I heard a voice behind me. Me. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when I turned around, I saw Laura, and she wasn't smiling. She said again, this time louder and more serious, "I'm serious." Everyone turned to face her. The room fell into stunned silence. I stared at her, unable to process what was happening. Then she said it. "I know it was you who broke up my wedding to Anthony. I heard you and Anthony talking at his house. You admitted to recording me at the restaurant." My blood ran cold. My mouth went dry. I couldn't even form a sentence. "What are you talking about?" I asked, still trying to act confused, though I could feel heat rising to my face. Laura's eyes narrowed. "You thought I wouldn't find out I bugged Anthony's house after the wedding was called off. I was trying to figure out if there was another girl I needed to worry about. But turns out, the only girl I needed to worry about was you, my best friend. Gasps echoed through the crowd. My legs felt unsteady. Then she looked at Todd. "Oh, and by the way," she said, smirking, "I already told Todd about your little secret. Your past as an adult entertainer. Not only that, but I've been sleeping with him for the past year." I looked at Todd. His face was stone. My stomach dropped. "I can't believe you," I said, barely above a whisper. She walked over to Todd, grabbed his face, and kissed him right there in front of everyone. "If anyone's getting married today," she shouted, "it's going to be me." People started murmuring, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some were already getting up. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned and ran out of the ceremony in tears. Anthony followed me into the dressing room, where I collapsed into his arms, sobbing. "She ruined everything," I choked out. "How could she?" Anthony didn't say much. He just held me and let me cry. The weeks that followed were a blur. Todd ghosted me completely. No messages, no calls, nothing. I didn't even get closure. It was like I had never meant anything to him. I spent most of my time curled up in bed, alternating between crying and staring at the wall. Anthony stayed close, checking in constantly. Without him, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. My parents were furious. They wanted to go public with everything Laura had done. But I couldn't bring myself to make things even uglier. I just wanted peace. I wanted my life back. Eventually, I got a text. It was from Todd. "I'm sorry for how everything happened. I didn't mean for it to blow up like that. But I think it's better this way. You lied to me." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Not long after that, Laura posted a photo on social media of her and Todd at the beach holding hands. The caption read, "Found my forever." Funny how life works out. I threw my phone across the room. Months passed. I moved out of my apartment and got a place across town. I needed distance. From the old memories, the neighborhood, all of it. I got a new job. I went back to therapy. I reconnected with old friends. Slowly, piece by piece, I started rebuilding myself. Anthony was still there, of course. He always was. He never brought up the wedding, never tried to use my pain as some weird way to feel better about his own. We helped each other through it. We were just siblings again, no drama, no pressure. One night over dinner, he said something that stuck with me. "You did the right thing, even if it blew up in your face. That says something about you." I nodded, tears in my eyes. "I don't regret telling you. I just hate how everything else happened." "I know," he said. "But she showed her true colors. And so did he. Better now than after you walked down that aisle." I haven't heard from Laura since. Not directly, at least. I hear bits and pieces. She and Todd are apparently still together, but they fight a lot. People say it's toxic, but neither of them will walk away. I wonder sometimes if she ever regrets it. If she ever thinks about what we had, not just her and me as best friends, but the trust we once shared. The bond we built over years shattered in one brutal afternoon. I still have the drawing she gave me, the caricature of me and Todd with the big heads and exaggerated smiles. I keep it in a drawer. I don't know why I haven't thrown it away yet. Maybe part of me needs to hold on to the past just a little longer to remind myself how far I've come. I'm not sure I believe in fairy tale endings anymore. But I do believe in starting over. I do believe in protecting the people I love. And if I had to choose again, I'd still protect my brother, even if it meant losing everything else. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.